Tom Brady goes for ring number 4 in his 5th Super Bowl, and he's got a couple of very nice tight ends to help him get it. My name is Tom Vandervoort, here to talk about the New England Patriots and the Super Bowl Hall of Fame quarterback Troy Aikman. And I want to start with the tight end combination, Troy, of Aaron Hernandez and, of course, Rob Gronkowski. It feels like the tight end position has kind of evolved over the last few years, and these guys are almost the culmination of that. Can you just talk about the matchup problems they're going to present for the Giants, and if the tight end position in your mind has changed a little bit over the last 10 years or so?
It's changed. It's changed quite a bit. The last Super Bowl that I won was in 1995, and Jay Novacek was our tight end, and there were only 2 tight ends that I can recall that were playing in the league at that time that were really more receiving tight ends than they were blockers, and that was Jay Novacek and then Brent Jones with the San Francisco 49ers. And little did I know after that Super Bowl that I would never throw another pass to Jay Novacek. He injured his back in the offseason, never played again for the Cowboys, and then subsequently retired. And I remember in '97, we struggled in '96, and Jerry Jones said, we need to go find another Jay Novacek. And you kind of laugh and you say, yeah, that'd be great, but those guys are really, really hard to find, and we never did find another one. And since that time, you look around the league and there's a number of those types of players. In fact, it's a little bit of an oddity when you see a team that doesn't have a pretty good receiving tight end. And that position, because of that, has changed. But the biggest thing that those guys do is they create a lot of problems inside. On the outside receivers, you can double those guys up, you can put a safety over the top of those guys and do different things. But when you have an interior receiver, those are hard positions to really defense, because even if you play with 2 guys on them, it's like playing basketball. And there's a reason why these tight ends, a lot of them that have been so good, Jimmy Graham, for instance, Tony Gonzalez is another guy who played basketball in college. And there's others that maybe didn't play in college, but they got a basketball background from high school. That's what the game becomes. And so you're just trying to find holes within the zones and getting open. And when you have that kind of feel, it makes it really, really tough on a defense. And what's impressive to me about the Patriots is the fact that they have kind of re-identified themselves offensively a number of times while Tom Brady has been the quarterback. When he first took over early in his career, they were more of a conventional, 2-back offense, run the ball, play a little conservatively within the passing game. Not surprising because he was a young quarterback. Then they went to the 3 and 4 wide receiver sets when they had Randy Moss. They put up a lot of yards, 50 touchdown passes, and then they lost obviously to the Giants then in the Super Bowl. Then after that, they draft these 2 guys, Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, and they become more of a 2 tight end package with guys that can create some of those problems that I spoke of. And through it all, they've just been a really explosive, dominant offensive football team, and that you don't see that often, but we've seen it in New England, and that's one of the reasons why I've been so impressed with Tom Brady and that offense doing it with a lot of different supporting players over the years.
It just seems like it must be hard to find players to actually match up with these guys.
Well, it is, because there's few players that have the same skills that tight end has. And Vernon Davis, for instance, was San Francisco last week. He's 250 pounds, and he runs a 4.2 40. He's the fastest guy on the field. So what happens is you put someone with speed on that guy that can run with him, and then the guy's typically a smaller player. You're talking about a corner who's probably 190 pounds. So he's got 50, 60 pounds on that person. And then on the intermediate routes, he just bodies them up, and he's able to make plays. Just like a big, post man in basketball would go up over a point guard and make those kinds of plays and on the basketball court. That's what happens. And then you put a guy with size on him that doesn't get handled physically, and then he can't run with him. So, do you have a safety that's that type of player? Do you have a linebacker that's that type of player? Those are the matchup problems that teams come up with, and it puts a real bind on these defensive coaches as to how they're going to be able to slow them down. And then, most of these teams that have this, then they've got outside receivers that are pretty good too. So as soon as you start drawing a lot of attention then to the tight end in the middle, now you open up some things on the outside, and you don't need a lot of them either. We had Michael Irvin and Jay Novacek, and between those 2 guys, we could create a lot of problems with a defense in the passing game.
Absolutely, and you are expert, obviously, at exploiting that, and so is Tom Brady. And like you, he has 3 Super Bowl rings, which is a pretty nice achievement, I got to say, going for number 4. And obviously, you're one of the few guys who knows what this is like, the difference between winning that first one and winning that second one, and then you get to winning that third. What's it like, the difference between the first one in terms of, is it easier in certain ways? Is it harder in other ways when you get back to the Super Bowl again and again?
I think the biggest advantage that Tom Brady has, or some of these Patriot players have, although they are playing the Giants, and of course Eli Manning's been in the Super Bowl before, and some of the other core players for the Giants as well. But what you have when you've been to more than one Super Bowl is you at least have a reference to knowing how your body is going to react emotionally, what that experience is going to be. If you've not played in the Super Bowl before, as much as you want to say, hey, this is just another game, I'm going to treat it just like any other game, it's not. And you're reminded of that, one, during the week, because of the media and the things that you have to do as a participant in the Super Bowl. But even if the week leading up to it is not a reminder to you, as soon as you hit the field, it's unlike any other game that I was a part of. The electricity in the air, the pageantry, I mean, all the things that come, with the Super Bowl. And the halftime is longer, and everything about it, the pregame's long, everything about it is different from the word go. And so the fact that you have a point of reference to know what that experience is going to be like, I think is helpful. I don't think anyone has ever played in enough Super Bowls to where they ever truly get used to that experience, But I do think that the advantage of at least knowing what to expect, because you never know how people are going to react. We see it all the time. That's one of the things that I've always enjoyed about watching the Super Bowl, is knowing what the pressures are like, knowing what the expectations are, and how much adrenaline there is early in the game. I'm always excited to see how players kind of respond to that, especially early. These guys who have been in Super Bowls before, they have at least an idea as to how they're going to respond.
Did you feel there was more pressure trying to get that first one, or more pressure trying to get that third one?
I think there's the first one is it's nice when you're able to win the first Super Bowl, and I there's a lot of guys that don't get a chance to even try that, so I don't take those for granted. But as a quarterback, once you've won one, then I always believe that, well, that's what you were brought to do. I mean, when you're a first-round pick for a franchise, you're drafted to bring a world championship to that team. You're really not drafted for any other reason. It's not about yards, it's not about stats. The New York Giants drafted Eli Manning to win a world championship. And so once you've done that, you kind of feel like at least you fulfilled the expectation and the obligation. That doesn't take any less pressure off of you, because you've then got to go back and do it all over again. It does buy you a little bit of a grace period. But when you get to the Super Bowl, at least for me, you never know if you're ever going to get there again. And so you really want to take advantage of the chances that you get. I mean, Tom Brady has been in 4, he's won 3. And I'm sure it kills him and pains him to know that he could have won a 4th Super Bowl. And even if he wins this one, that this one could have been his 5th Super Bowl. And then he would have obviously won more Super Bowls than any quarterback in the history of the game. And so, missing out on those opportunities, are things that you never quite get over. And so you want to take advantage of the moment.
Fantastic. Great insight, Troy. Really appreciate your time today. Look forward to catching up with you again, and we'll see what happens on Super Sunday.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tom.